My dude, what's up?
Not much, dude. Just
How-
woke up,
Oh
got out
yeah.
of the shower, naked and crusty in my XT racer chair. You know how it is. Esports life.
Naked and crusty. Those are two
No,
words. I know what they mean, and they're not
Oh, yeah?
bad separately, but together that's a little bit bad.
Yeah, I can say because I'm not streaming, so benefits of not having webcam.
Yeah. Okay. Um, let's go ahead and get started. Chat, am not naked and crusty, at least from the hips up, and
Feels
we're going to
bad,
be
man.
reviewing some Sigma review now. First off, for those of you who don't know, I guess Chrono, kind of give yourself an introduction, and then I want to tell our background because we have a background.
Okay. Yes, I mean I was a competitive Overwatch player for like 3 years, and then I recently retired like 4 or 5 months ago to focus like full time on streaming and making YouTube videos. And yeah, that's about it. And I locked the toes now. Basically, Sigma one trick
Okay.
nowadays.
How many hours do you have in Sigma now?
Oh boy, I mean, so he came out, let's say 2 months ago on PTR, and I'd say an average of 4 or 5 hours a day, like 7 days a week.
Jeez, dude. That's
So
insane.
a whole bunch of hours.
Okay. Is there anything that you think, I guess, below the GM level that Sigmas generally struggle with the most? Like, what is, like, if there's one thing that you feel like Sigmas always suck at least not very good Sigmas, what do you think that is?
Well, I'd say the number one most important thing is by far shield management. Because
Okay.
like the way you play Sigma is entirely dependent on your shield, right? So if you have 0 shield HP, you're basically at like the mercy of the enemy about what they want to do to you. Whereas if you have your shield, you can like go super aggro and then disengage with your shield. Like the whole playstyle revolves around your shield HP and like how aggressive you can be with it.
So
100%
the more shield you have, that can basically allow you to play a more aggressive tempo. The less shield you have, the less tempo or the less aggressive you can be. So if you're better with your shield management, it's at a higher number for longer, which means you can play more aggressive for longer. Is that kind of
Yep, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go and get started. This is on Ilios. The quality is a little bit less than satisfactory, but I don't know how much experience you have with Q, but the pause, the skip,
Oh, I
the
do.
drawing. Okay, so yours should be all set. I'm gonna set my rewind forward to 2 seconds. So, and then we're gonna go ahead and get started. Usually, when I have a guest on, especially one like yourself who's good at what he does, I will talk some. I will look at chat. Chat, if you have a question, tag me and I will ask Chrono so he doesn't have to read chat. But I'm mostly just kind of let you do your thing, and I'm just kind of helping chat understand. So we're gonna go and get started.
All right, sounds good. And you said this was gold, right?
Yes, this is gold. This is gold.
Okay, for sure. So one of the first things I like to look at when I play Sigma is that your other tank, right? So if you have another shield tank, like let's say Reinhardt or Orisa, then that means you can flank more as Sigma. And as Sigma, you should generally speaking be looking to flank or off angle as much as you can. But that's compared to, let's say you had like a Diva or a Zarya or Roadhog instead. Then you'd want to play more of like a shield tank. So that's like the number one thing to pay attention to.
Now, why is that?
Right.
Is that basically your Ryan Orisa kind of holds the main tank job, and then you kind of just off angle and apply pressure, and then if you don't have a shield tank, you're kind of the main tank? Is that kind of the gist of things?
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, because Sigma gets so much more value when he's flanking or taking off angles. Like, it's basically like a balancing act, right?
Why
Between
is that?
off... Just because, like, he does a lot of burst damage, right? The left flick does 110 damage now.
Mhm.
And if you manage to, like, get a cheeky off angle, it's like 110 splash damage. It's really insane, actually.
Okay.
And it applies pressures, right? Because if they push into you, you can shield back and disengage. And then, you know, your team is free. Then your team can push into the enemy team, right? It's the idea that... Let me see if I can actually draw it out.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's say that your team is, let's say the enemy team is playing here. This is arbitrary. Ignore the map right now.
Yep.
So red is the enemy. This is your team. And then let's say you have like a Sigma on the flank here, like this. So if they turn and kill Sigma, then your team can push in like this, and you can just disengage with your shield. And this is again where the shield HP comes back into play, right? So the more shield you have, the longer you're able to survive on these flanks, and then your team has more time to capitalize on that. That's kind of a scuff drawing, but I mean that's like the general idea behind it.
Okay. And you don't just die immediately in the off angle too, because you said you can back
Oh, no,
up, you
because
can
that's
shield, you can
Yeah,
slow
you have
it
to be
down.
careful, right?
Yeah.
Because if they have a Lucio, then you know they can speed onto you, right? Because you obviously won't have Lucio speed on the flank.
Right.
But if they don't have Lucio, you have like equal movement speed, right? And you have a shield that you can constantly redeploy backing up. So there's like no way you die unless you get dove or speed boosted onto.
Okay.
That's why Sigma is so strong at off angling, because he's so hard to clear out because of the shield.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. It does take forever to break his shield. It takes forever.
Oh yeah, it definitely does.
Barrier.
All right. Okay, so this is all pretty fine. I mean, a small minor thing I would like to see is just that like you would go here instead and play through main. Because again, the off angling thing, right? You want to have your team going like this, and then you can like pressure everybody from main like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I'd really like to see here. But if you guys are playing with the same and you're playing to TP, then maybe you want to play with your team. And the problem with that rock was you didn't really have any like clear target in mind when you rocked. So that was definitely a waste there.
Okay. So you don't advocate just throwing rock out like off of cooldown. You need to have a
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Especially here's the thing, especially against Doomfist, right? Because the thing is every cooldown usage has an opportunity cost. So if you use rock, it like what is it? Let's say 9-10 second cooldown, something like that. That is 9 or 10 seconds where the enemy Doomfist can shit on your team. And people really don't consider it, but Sigma Rock is like one of the best counters to Doomfist. So yeah, for example, let's say that hypothetically this Doom kept diving and killing your backline over and over again. Then you would like save Rock exclusively for the Doom. Because he's the biggest threat that you want to deal with the Rock.
Ana players, did you hear that? The same thing goes for Sleep Dart sometimes.
Yep. Exactly.
Awesome.
Okay, so you guys are down 1 right now. So you're playing a really, really passive angle right now. Which I guess is fine because you're down 1, but there's no way you're going to win this fight. Because think about this, so the first fight's over and you're at 25%. Like if you would have went for like slightly more risky play like here, instead just like playing through main stairs like this, like you can easily spam them, and if they push you, you just kite back and you keep reshielding. Like there's actually no way you die if you play this position here.
And that all has to do with, like you said, the initial positioning of your tank, which was, you know, kind of going through main here, and then you wanted him to, rather than following his team like this, you know, take another angle this direction. You can apply more.
That's completely right. And even in this case, right, even when you're in this position, you're already down 1. You know they're holding the point like this. Let's do yellow, actually. You can still, like, rotate out like this. Because you always want to take, like, off angles or, like, wide angles as Sigma. If you don't get punished for it. It's like a balancing act, right? Between taking the widest angle possible without feeding. That's sort of like the thing you're aiming for.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we already saw this one.
There's a question in chat. How do you time Rock against Doomfist, considering it's a slower projectile?
That's a good question. You basically, like, the easier way to do it is to catch him in the middle of one of his cooldowns, right? So for example, let's say that a Doomfist is on the ground, right? Looking directly at you, charging his punch. Like, the moment you see that he starts charging his punch, you'd want to start Rock right at him, even before he punches. This is a common situation that happens, actually, where they're going to have, like, a Doomfist and a shield, and Doomfist is going to be charging his punch, like, from behind the shield. And then let's say your Sigma is playing right here. This is, like, completely arbitrary. That, even though he's behind the shield and he's charging his punch, you want to start your Rock right now, before he even punches. Because if the Doom is already punching into you, it's too late. Guaranteed. But yeah, for example, like, when, so when Doomfist is right-clicking is, like, the easiest one, right? Because he's very, like, linear in his movement. The second one is when he shifts you, or, like, uses shift to go up. It's like a very predictable arc, right, to hit him.
No, that's shift being uppercut, right?
Yeah, uppercut. Yeah, that's right. And then, for example, if Doom is engaging onto you, the easiest way to do it is with uppercut. So he's going to uppercut, both you guys fly into the air, you just hold your crosshair in, like, the neutral position, and you land the rock. So those are, like, the general ways that I like to think about it.
Okay, awesome.
Reinhardt pins in. Okay. Let me look at that rock real quick. Wait. How long is this rewind? Let me go back and see.
Yeah, go. Yeah, the rewind you might have to toy with.
Oh, actually, for example, here, I'm not going to rewind. I'm going to click back just a bit. This is actually exactly what we're talking about. You see a Doomfist here, charging directly at you guys. Whereas, like, this is an opportunity where you just, like, start using your rock. And, like, if you land this stun, this Doomfist is basically guaranteed to be dead, because your team's playing through main, and he's going to fall right here.
I also think it's important to notice the distance as well. I think any distance shorter than this, you don't rock, or it's very risky to rock, because he's likely to be able to finish his animation before you release your rock.
Yeah, I mean,
it depends on how far away, because even though the travel time is fast, it does give you a couple of extra seconds or milliseconds, I guess, to finish the animation before he does punch. Because I feel like if he's like here and he's charging punch, trying to rock this might be dangerous. What do you think?
Well, even then, I would rock it, and the reason for that is that it's going to force him to do a suboptimal punch, I guess we can say, right? It's not going to let him do exactly what he wants to do, because he's going to do a lower damage punch or whatever. He's going to be forced to do it, correct?
So he has to release it faster. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and therefore dealing less damage. So he's actually a less of a threat, even if you force him to use the punch.
Interesting. I never thought of it that way.
And then even if, you know, he doesn't do it, then you rock him and he's most likely dead.
Right.
So I feel like there's no like terrible outcome based
Okay.
off of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Okay, so the rock came out a little bit too late, but I mean that's a little bit of a nitpicky thing. One thing I'm noticing though, it seems like you struggle to like take space. It's more like you're playing a very passive Sigma, almost as if you're like a Kree or something, you know, playing farther back. This is fine. Good job using the shield for the Widow. This is super good. One small thing though. Oh my god. I'm gonna try to skip forward again. It's just one small thing. So when you're shielding the Widowmaker and you have the shield covering her, you don't have to keep shooting her, right? Because she's already effectively out of the fight. So right now, you're actually like basically 1v1ing Widowmaker even though you're shielding her, which isn't worth it for you. What you'd rather do is you'd rather use your shield to block the Widowmaker and then ignore her and then shoot the front line or whoever's in front of your team.
So you use part of your kit to completely negate one person, and then you use the rest of your kit to add more damage and more effectiveness to the rest of your core. So it's
Exactly.
It's like you're doing the work of two people almost.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because if you just shield like this, it's a 6v5 fight in main, or like the main fight, right? But if you're sitting here 1v1ing Widow when you shield her, then it's a 5v5 on the fight, and your team does not have the Sigma with you.
Right. Okay.
That's like the simple way to explain it.
Yeah.
And again, this is like one really big pet peeve is you're always playing like very centrally with your team, right? You're still playing behind your Reinhardt, around your Sim. You're not really going for any off angles here. That was a really good rock. And if you notice your positioning, you still like keep cutting back. So you're playing way too passively as a Sigma, like all around.
You're
Like
right.
you're afraid to push up. And your Ryan is a absolute unit. Okay. And this is just lack of awareness, because I don't think you knew that these people were behind you. So this isn't really a Sigma thing, this is more of a game sense kind of thing. Actually, we can talk about that. So you guys got flanked by the Hog, and I think that's the Widowmaker. And a lot of that is because you played with your team, and you didn't off-angle. So when you off-angle, you actually like deny the enemy space. So for example, if you were to off-angle this way, these people most likely would not have been able to go on this flank here. So it all sort of ties back into that. You can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but
No,
I think you just
it's
hold
right.
way more space off-angling.
No, I think that's right. Like,
Thank you, my friend.
somebody just hosted me, so thank you for the host, whoever just hosted me. Cliff, thank you for the host. I think it's the same thing they do with tracers. How like being a flanking tracer, you can get more scouting information because you see things from a different angle. Whereas enemy teammates who might be trying to flank your core, you can see them. Or if somebody's trying to flank you, your core can see them trying to flank you. So just taking more map control isn't just good for advantageous positions, but you can see more crap. You can see more stuff, and I think that's really important. No, I think you're 100% right.
Okay, for sure. Okay, so I mean, it's still the same overarching things, right? Not, you know, flanking, not doing anything like that, playing too passively. But I want to see how you use your Flux here, because Flux is probably what the second best ultimate in the game, behind EMP, I would say.
Wow.
So-
Okay, that's quite the.
Okay, wait, hey, let's talk about it. Hey, what do you think, Spilo?
I guess a lot of it is meta dependent.
Yeah, of course.
But I would believe it. I think if I don't. Let me put it this way. I don't know what the top 3 would be, but I would definitely consider putting Sigma there. It's just, but
Okay.
I don't know. I think it is a very strong ult though.
Yeah, so the reason it's really strong is because it has such a big radius, and like the damage is 50% max HP. Like that's pretty fucking big. And the thing is, you can use it in many ways, right? You don't have to win the fight off of Flux. So the two big ways to use Flux are like the first one is if Flux is your fight win condition, then you want to force out enemy cooldowns that would like stop it, right? So that would be, for example, like a Roadhog Vape, Orisa Shift, Zarya Bubbles, things like that, right? That would save them from the Flux. So you want to force those abilities out before you ultimate. Or you can use Flux as a way to like take out resources for the enemy team, so then you can follow up and win the fight.
Yep.
So for example, you can just Flux, you know, they use a lot of cooldowns to stay alive, they just hold W into them, and you win the fight.
And I think that's how
That's
a
why
lot of
Flux
the
is so good.
Overwatch League teams do it. They don't even
Yeah.
try to get a big flash. You just halt Sigma ult. You get literally every cooldown in the game, and then you can just press W and win.
Yep, especially at higher levels where being proactive is like super important. Okay, so the problem with this Flux, let me go back just a bit. So usually another point of thumb with, rule of thumb with Sigma is when you're fluxing, you don't want to spend a lot of time in this animation phase they're doing right now. With Sigma, you want to press Q and then left click basically as fast as you can. Like, the more airtime you have like this, the more time the enemy has to react and, like, counterplay your Flux. So you always want to be really fast on it. So if you're pressing Q, you should already know exactly where you want to Flux. That's, like, mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is you're targeting Orisa. And remember, she has Fortify. So even if you land your Flux on her, you wasted her ultimate. So you wasted your ultimate. You're basically trading Flux for Fortify, which is in no world worth it. See how it gets really awkward here because you don't have... Sorry, because they're running away. Okay, so that was a huge waste of a Flux right there. And again, I think Flux is actually one of the big parts of Sigma's kit. Alright, nice. You guys are cleaning up the fight, though.
Can I actually point out one thing really quick there? And I know the only reason I'm going to point out because he did it a couple times. He seems to be over-shielding in 1v1s. In other words, he's putting his shield a little too far. So, when he kind of comes to point here, look at where his shield goes here. Doesn't do anything. Again, doesn't do anything. Because he's clearly using it to try and 1v1 the Lucio, but he keeps shielding way past the targets he's 1v1ing. They keep zooming it past them. And again, like he's like...
Yeah, still the shield's too far.
Yeah, the shield is consistently too far. So, might be something just kind of keep an eye on, maybe.
That's true. I mean, for that's just a purely mechanical thing, right? So you're basically this comes from not being comfortable with how long the animation time is on the shield. And the way you can practice this, like, super easily in spawn, like, before the game starts, literally just, like, try to use your shield in a way that you shield right in front of you, instead of shielding really far from you. Just, like, keep spamming right-click to a point where you get used to it. And over time, it becomes super natural, and you can shield literally, like, on your fingertips every single time. It's super good.
Even if Orisa is fortified, does she take the 50 damage?
Chat. She takes... Yeah, she takes the 50 damage, and then there's the fortify, what's it called, multiplier or whatever. So 25 damage.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And yeah, it is. And then what is it? If you flux Orisa into the air and then she shifts, she's gonna go to the moon. That's also another thing. So
kind of like Halt.
You can actually get high ground as Orisa, yeah. But I think it's higher than Halt actually, like way higher.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. This is good. I like how you're trying to spam around the shield. Photos is fine. But this is again one of those situations where you'd want to use shield. So if you know you're going to be trying to take a fight right here in the hallway, you want to shield that preemptively, right? So for example, you know you're going to fight here, so you should left click and then shield something like this. That way you can use your shield for free. The problem here is that you have your shield ability, but you're not actually using it. Like, you shouldn't be taking any damage here whatsoever. On top of that, you shouldn't be getting cooked. The problem here is that you knew you were trying to fight in this hallway for, like, let's say 3 seconds, and never did you even consider dropping down a shield. And that's, like, the big fundamental mistake here.
And I think it's like, you're talking about a hero who can... His primary fire is slow as it is. You know, you should be doing something between that downtime anyway. You might as well be shielding. It doesn't slow you down at all.
Yeah, 100%. And on top of that, like, his shield has a short cast time for a reason, you know? With Sigma, you always want to, like, constantly redeploy your shield. Like, don't be afraid to use it. It's not like wasting a fortify or, like, a suck or, like, an important cooldown. It's literally just a shield that you can deploy at any second and put down at any moment. It's like there's no downside to using it, really.
Yeah, really quick, chat. So this is a concept to think about. When it comes to repeatedly putting up your shield and placing it down, it makes you unpredictable in terms of, like, blocking cooldowns and things like that. It makes it difficult for the enemy team to try and aim hooks and nades and sleeps. But the big thing is that you want to be taking damage between... Like, you want to be taking chip damage, right? If you just put your shield up and don't take it down, it's going to break, and then you're going to die. Because your team is not going to be able to heal you up during the burst damage that you're going to take. However, if you're repeatedly dropping your shield and putting it up again, you'll take chip damage during these windows, but your supports can heal that. That's easy for your supports to heal. Because then you re-shield, your supports heal you back up, you drop your shield, you take a little bit of chip damage. You put your shield back up, right? Whereas if you have just shield... and it breaks, you're now completely exposed to more than chip damage, something that can't be healed up. So repeatedly dropping and reshielding makes your shield last longer. It has a greater chance to block cooldowns, and it also basically helps your supports out. It takes a lot of pressure off of your supports.
Yeah, so, like, one big thing I see, like you basically mentioned, is that a lot of Sigmas, they use their shield as if it's like an Orisa shield, right? Where it just sits there and it takes a shitload of, like, random damage. That's not how it works. Like you said, it's kind of like when you play Reinhardt, right? You don't shield until you need to shield.
Hmm.
So maybe you're playing Reinhardt, you take 100 damage, and then you shield. Then you get healed up, and then, you drop your shield again, take some damage, and then you shield up again. So yeah, completely agree.
Okay,
A
perfect.
lot of Sigmas right now is exactly what they do. They use it to block random spam damage when you should use it to, like, block abilities. Real quick, you have to be careful, though, of your supports, right? If you just randomly keep flashing your shield, there's a good chance your supports might get picked.
Hmm.
So basically, the general idea is that unless you, like, when you're shielding, you should know exactly what you're shielding. And if you don't, then it's probably a bad shield. Like, you should always have a rationale behind your shields. And that's something that you can look at VOD reviews on your own time. Okay. Yeah, not a big fan of that rock right here. Go back and talk about it. Yeah, so the thing with this rock is, like, even if you land this rock, there's not much way that you have to capitalize off of it. So rock is... how can I explain it? But yeah, like, if you rock, you should have a way to capitalize on it. You don't want to rock just for the sake of landing 90 damage and hitting a rock.
Right.
You want to rock so you can actually gain additional value off the top of that. So for example, if Hog were to, like, push like this onto the point, and you rock him as he comes in, he's probably dead. Because your whole team's looking at him, he's in the choke point. Whereas right here, your team would have to, like, overextend to push the Hog. And they can't really do that realistically.
Makes sense. Yeah. Question from chat really quick. How often should you be looking to use the verticality of Flux to get to high ground? So basically, when is high ground good as Sigma, like mid-fight kind of a thing?
Well, if we're talking specifically about, using Flux to get it, I'd say that's like an afterthought, right?
Yeah.
You want to get a good, like, solid fundamental Flux, and then if you can, like, land on a high ground, then do it. But I mean, it's not something you should consider when you're using Flux necessarily, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Like, maybe that's like 5%, like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as for high grounds and, like, off angling, I say they kind of go hand in hand, especially on Sigma. So you want to off angle whenever you can, and you want to take high grounds whenever you can. But again, you have to be careful. If you're playing only one shield tank, for example, Sigma Zarya, then you have to play more careful with your team. So those are, like, the things to keep in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, high ground is good, off angles are good.
Okay.
So yeah, right now this is like where I'm saying you're not really doing much. You guys have a Sigma shield, or sorry, not a Sigma shield, but a Sim shield to play around. You're not really using that shield to, like, spam or do anything. You're just kind of sitting here AFK on point, which is in itself sort of a problem here. That was a great block on the hog hook. Yeah, so this Flux. I mean, this is going to seem really, really obvious. But yeah, you want to Flux as essentially to the team as you can, right? So let's say you want to Flux somebody who's playing right here. You'd rather aim your Flux like this, so that this target's in the middle, rather than, like, if you're aiming for this target, you do a Flux like this, where you barely get this target. So you always want to aim as centrally as possible. So in this case, right, you probably want to aim your Flux somewhere around here, because that way you can get people in all this area, which is a much bigger Flux. But instead you sort of panic, and you end up doing this Flux here.
Yeah.
Which is actually really bad. I think it only gets 1 or 2 people. Really good Rock on the Doom. I'm a huge fan of that.
Ooh.
That Rock on the Doom was incredibly clutch.
It's a good grasp.
Yep. So I mean, after that was a pretty good fight, once it broke down on point. Alright, really good shield usage. Actually, I'm trying to think. Your shield's 700 HP right now. I'm gonna go back just a bit. So you're doing a good job shielding the Widowmaker. But you're not giving your shield any time to recharge. And that's what I'm trying to look at here. Because the thing is, ideally, like, when you guys win a fight, there's, like, no excuse not to have 1.5k shield HP when the fight breaks out again. So I just want to make sure that you do have your full shield when the fight actually, like, begins here. Because right now, you're not giving it any chance to recharge. Yeah, so for example, right there, you did not need to shield. And your shield was already recharging. So this one little, like, flick you did right here, that probably cost you, like, 400 or 500 shield HP. Wait, let's see. Yeah, it actually cost you all your shield HP. Oh, never mind, you got it. Never mind, you're at 1.4k now. Just want to make sure. You don't want to shield unless you have any reason to shield.
Yeah, I like, kind of going back to what you were saying, too, about the rock, not to change subjects, but, like we get, I'm trying not to laugh at this, like, rocking the wall, but ultimately the goal, the point, like you said, was still, okay, you rock the Winston. So what? Right? Like, you inconvenience him, right? Now, if this Winston's in your backline, where your team can shoot him and where you can peel for your team, that makes a whole lot more sense. But like you said, you should be asking yourself, what does this rock actually accomplish, right? If it's just like this would be like the equivalent of sleep darting this monkey. Okay, now you're just wide open to getting dove, right? All you did.
And even in sleep darting is way better than rocking this guy here as well. So it's actually even worse than sleep darting there.
Right, because the CC is shorter.
It's longer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. Okay, good pick on the Doom. What a gamer. Yeah, so I really don't like high rocking basically every single time. The thing is, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but you kind of want to use your rock. I don't think reactively is the right word, but you want to do it as a result of some of the enemy doing something else.
Okay.
So, for example, Doomfist punches in, you want to rock him. Winston dives your backline, you're gonna rock him. Roadhog uses vape, you're gonna rock him. Because again, like the rock itself doesn't do shit. It's really not that good by itself. The like all the value of the rock is the fact that it sets up something larger. You get more additional value for the stun, for example, because you stun somebody out of position. So yeah, I just really want to make that very clear.
Okay.
Because right now, I think I've seen one good rock. That was a Doofus on point. Ooh. You hate to see it.
Okay. So, not awful. What are we seeing basically the biggest things here? Like, we have seen rock usage, you've seen some shield management. The big one that we've seen a lot of is the positioning hasn't been good, and then we've seen poor use of his flux as well.
Yes.
Any other, okay, so like do you think we'll see more of this round and kind of see where it shapes out to be, but kind of keeping our scopes focused. Chat, really quick, if you have a question, now would be the time to ask it. If I don't answer your question or I don't ask it, I'm trying to not spend this entire thing doing a Q&A. So I'll probably ask a question every 5-6 minutes or so. So if I don't get to your question, if I ignore your question, ask it again like every 10 minutes or so. And I will eventually get to it. So now's your chance. We're between rounds.
One thing I did notice though, while we're taking a short little break here,
please.
is that your mechanics aren't really bad, Abe Lincoln. Like your mechanics are actually fine. It just like your cooldown usage, like you said, and then positioning is a big one.
I'm sorry, I gotta. That's a sentence I never thought I would ever hear. Without context, your mechanics aren't that bad, Abe Lincoln.
Dude, I mean, for a gold player though, like
no, it's true. But like the name Abraham Lincoln, your mechanics aren't bad. Okay. No, I agree. Yeah. Question: if Widow is not viable anymore with the shield Sigma, is Widow not viable anymore with the shield Sigma has the Sigma shield regen? Like, okay, Widow is viable. It's just much harder to play, and you're gonna probably get flamed really hard for picking her. But you can make it work. It's just you have to play hyper aggressive.
Yeah, you have to go for like super aggro flanks.
Yeah,
where they can't shield you.
Yep. And do Sigma shields regen like Ryan? Yes. The suck says. Spilo, if you're tanking alongside a Sigma, but they're playing more like a main tank, how should you alter your tank playstyle? You want to answer that one, Chrono?
Oh, you cut out for a bit. Sorry, what was that question?
He goes, if you're tanking alongside a Sigma, but they are playing more like a main tank, how should you alter your tank/pick style?
Wait, hold on. Where is the comment in chat? I want to read it because I don't think I quite understood that. That's the suck. Okay, if you're tanking, but they're playing more like a main tank. Okay, yeah, so here's the deal. So if your Sigma's playing more like a main tank, then you want to play more supportive to the main tank, right? As an off tank usually is. So like you want to be looking for more aggressive windows. So let's say you're playing like Sigma Zarya, for example. Usually you should be looking to go aggressive with the Zarya bubbles. So your Sigma's going super aggro, you bubble him, and then you go aggro with your bubble. And then that's how you play. Versus let's say your Sigma were flanking. Then you'd want to play more for energy, right? You want to get high energy, you want to play slow, you want to let your Sigma do his thing. That's sort of the way I would explain it. So generally speaking, if you have a main tank Sigma, you should usually play a little bit more aggro. Whereas if you're playing a flanking Sigma, you should play slower. Because the longer you draw out these fights, the more value you get from the flanking Sigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the idea behind it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll do one more question. When it comes to using rock, should you try to only go for shots that are high chance to land, like choosing low risk, possibly low reward versus high risk, high reward? Basically, should we you kind of already answered this one?
Yeah.
But
so basically, you want to go for like high percentage rocks. You don't want to go for those like, oh, if by chance I happen to get this guy, like that's really bad. Because again, it all ties back to the opportunity cost. So if you use rock on, let's say, a Lucia wall riding around, and let's say they have a Doomfist, that's 10 seconds where the Doom is free to fuck your team. So that's definitely not good. Because again, the opportunity cost is super important to consider. Especially in 2-2-2 where there's less counters to a Doomfist, right? Because before, you know, you had like big armor packs, you had like 3 healers, shit like that, and Doom wasn't as big of a deal. But now you don't have like as many of those defensive abilities, so Rock actually becomes more important in relativity. If that makes sense. That might be a little bit too six-head, but
no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Robin, we're gonna keep moving. Sorry, we ran out of questions. Isn't that too bad?
Robin, you're cute. All right. I like the toes. All right, so you guys are playing the same time comp.
I love that TP timing, by the way. Like halfway when they're already halfway to the point. Now we're in a TP from spawn. Thank you, Symmetra.
Hey, the brain CPU.
Well, I guess we're off-angling a little bit.
Yeah, we could say that. So actually, the problem here is the lack of foresight. So you know you're going to be playing in this direction, so you only shield like this. You don't consider that he could come from an angle like this and try to like damage you. So this is just foresight, right? If you knew you're going to try to make this play, you would shield a little bit more centrally like this.
And when it make more sense, if you're wanting to play on an off angle anyway, you should already be here. Like, you should be coming from this direction, not going through main and then around this way.
Yeah, because you take way more damage going into the point in the middle of the action, trying to go through the fucking war zone. Oh, shit. Yeah, trying to go through the fucking war zone to go on off angle.
Right.
You're better off doing it from the very beginning. I do like the idea, though, that you're trying to off angle.
Yeah.
Now you're in a really awkward spot, right? Where on the right side, you have to shield the right side or the hog shits on you, but there's also like this whole open angle right here that can shoot you. And again, that's just all a result of your initial positioning. Okay, that was good. A general rule of thumb, though, is when you're trying to stun, when you have Rock and you're playing against a Roadhog, usually you want to save your stun for when he tries to vape. Because, I mean, that's just going to get you the most overall damage, right? The most overall value. Whereas if you stun him after he's vaped, or like before he's vaped, he's just going to like get back up, vape, and probably just run away and buy more time for his team. Yeah, in this case, it's okay because you're so low that you can just burst him down after the stun. It is one thing to keep in mind.
Initial positioning here. What do you think?
Let's see. Yeah, so again, I still don't like the initial positioning. And again, it's literally the same thing over and over again. Just not off-angling. So, the way I'd say it is you want to off-angle as much as you can until you're forced to stop. So you should play either on... So ideally, you'd play on the right side here, like by the statue where you were on first fight. You play around there. And then let's say they try to push you. Then you can say, oh shit, I can't hold here anymore. And then you go back to your team. Yeah. You'd always rather default to off-angling and then go back to your team, rather than staying with your team and then trying to off angle.
Right, it's too late then. Also, just a good general rule for tanks: anybody that plays this point, please never, ever, 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 ever play on point as a tank. Main tank, off angle, doesn't matter. Please, you play the back of point, you play forward point. Playing on the point here is just a death sentence. It's a terrible point to play. Terrible. Okay, go ahead. I'm off. My soapbox is broken. Yeah. Well, we would have seen that if we were in the proper position, wouldn't we?
Yep. You think about that. If you were to, exactly. If you would have kept playing right here, you could like pressure these guys as they push up, and not only would you have seen them, you probably would have been able to stop them because they wouldn't have all that space to walk up for free. Because Sigma's damage is actually like pretty significant. So yeah, again, this like a lot of these issues really just do tie down to initial positioning. And I mean that rock was fine. Yeah, that was a good rock because it was such a long rock that it's actually a long stun that you could capitalize on it. You're doing a good job staying alive. But the reason you're staying alive is because you're playing like a weenie. You're not really doing anything for your team. So I guess both ways.
Oh no!
Sorry bro, my bad. Gotta keep it
No, that's
gotta keep it Disney.
No.
But again, like look at this. You're literally a fucking cheerleader for this Reinhardt. Look at him. You're like, hey, go Rein. And you're sitting here just watching him. So one thing, if you're playing the Sigma Rein, one way that you win is that you go pretty aggro with your Reinhardt. So that being said, you like let's say your Reinhardt wants to push right side hypothetically.
Yep.
Then you would throw your shield somewhere like this. That way Rein can walk up without worrying about taking damage and swing without taking damage. Like that's a really big thing with how you play this specific tank combo. Because yeah, right now you're really not doing anything. You're just kind of like watching your Reinhardt. And here you're also wasting shield. So your shield's been up this whole time, and it's still up, and it's still up, and it's still up. And I guess it's a similar concept to Reinhardt, where you'd always rather have a shield with like 20 HP, we'll say, rather than a broken shield. Like a shield with 20 HP is probably 5 times better than no shield, because you can block like really important projectiles.
Right. You still have that one instance of shield. If you really need it, it'll be there.
Yep. So the fact that your shield's like literally 20 HP right here and you're not doing anything with it, like that's a huge red sign that you just forgot about your shield completely. And now you all... Yeah, so this Flux is definitely not the play. So Flux is one of those ults where you could use it in a 5v6 and it's fine, usually. But if it's anything worse than a 5v6, like a 4v6 or whatever, then you probably should not be using it in the fight.
It's a lot like Blade, where you'll see like these 6-man blades, but what you don't see is the Winston that jumped in there and took the flashbang, or the Ana that topped him off, or the Tracer that burned the Zen to half HP so it only took 1 slash. If you actually tried to 6v1 with Blade, you'd never kill anybody. You wouldn't even kill a single person. And I think Sigma ult is a lot of ults are similar to, like, you need that follow-up support. You need that follow-up damage. You need that support, and you're not like...
Yeah, Sigma ult especially, actually. That's one big problem I see a lot of Sigmas with, is like, let's say your team is playing on point here, right? Even though it's really bad, your team's playing here. And the enemy team is playing, let's say, right here. I see a lot of Sigmas that what they're going to do is they're going to be like, oh, I can get a 6-man Flux back here, right? And in their head, 6-man Flux is really good, right? But practically, there's no follow-up for that, so it doesn't matter. And they end up wasting Flux. And this actually happens a ton, even in Grandmaster and top 500.
Because there's no follow-up there.
Yeah, exactly. Because the ultimate is super dependent on follow-up.
Okay.
It's not as ultimate that like kills things in itself. It sets like your team up, essentially.
Okay, so we're going to judge things by the intention, not the results, and still say that's a bad Flux.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I do think looking at principle is way better than looking at the outcome when looking at VODs. As long as you have the right idea, you're on the right track. But yeah, for example, here, holding on point, again, as usual, not the play. Yeah. And again, you'd much rather be off-angling, which we already talked about like so many times. And again, these people, it might seem like, oh, Ryan's not making any space. But to be honest, you guys are completely forfeiting all of the space on the map. Like, you guys are having no control.
Can we talk about map control? So, I think my way of describing map control for people that don't understand it is as like you're giving away spots to the map that the enemy team wants to be on. The Zarya would like to be on high ground. The Widow would like to flank behind and shoot you in the head. The Ana would like to sneak behind you and nade behind shield. And then when you give up spots to where they can do that, then you get into trouble, right? What is your basic definition of map control? Because it seems like it's a really vague concept, but it's really important.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this makes sense for people who like don't play competitively, but I literally just say it's like giving up space. But I guess it's like what you said, but less elaborate.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay. It's just like you, or another way to do it is like you're letting them do whatever they want. You're not stopping them from doing what they want to do.
Right. So what dictates space? So like we're giving up all this space by their spawn. Is that giving up map control there? Like when does it become relevant, I guess, is the question.
I guess because it becomes relevant when they can get value from it. But that's not a very like friendly way to explain it.
Well, it does make sense. Because the thing is, it makes more sense. The thing is,
they get value if they go this way, and they get these angles on our high ground. But they don't, like... That's actually a good question. I can't defend it for this fun example.
Yeah. Somebody said in chat, advantageous positions for free. And that seems like a...
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. It obviously...
Who was it? Who's the genius?
Nothing good.
Nothing good.
It's actually not true. Nothing good, maybe, but that was the one good thing right there. A misnomer of a name. Hey, ChroNoDoTa. My answer is advantageous positions for free. Nice, that was perfect. Nice job.
Mine now.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean the thing is like, we already watched the first map, and like this is all like repeats of the same thing, right? Because it's more just like fundamental like underlying like tendencies that you have, and we just see it being played out in basically every single team fight here.
Right, and it's good though because it's like we know that it's not necessarily his use of Flux that's the biggest problem here.
Yeah,
right? Like we can see, I think positioning is probably his biggest problem.
Yeah, 100% on Sigma. And what's positive is that all these fights, they seem to boil down to basically the same exact thing. That means when you fix those few things, you eliminate, like, let's say 80% of problems. Which is huge, dude. Like, I guarantee you, if this guy, I don't know what his exact rank is, but he's gold right now. I don't know the exact number. But if he were to start, like, flanking, I guess even if you just start flanking or being more aggressive with positioning, I'd literally say he probably goes up 5, 6, 7, 800 SR. Not even kidding you.
Okay.
Maybe that's a bit overzealous, but I really think so. It's that important on Sigma. Yeah, now this is really sketchy. It seems like Abe Lincoln, this person, doesn't really consider like the macro perspective of the game, right? He sees, oh, there's a Reinhardt here. I want to kill this Reinhardt. But he doesn't consider there's a Widow holding sidelines here. And I'm going in front. Because, yeah, this is a really, really bad play. I think we can all, like, agree looking at it back now. But, yeah. The thing is, this, like, should never be happening, right? I can't see any situation where this would be an acceptable play. That's what I'm trying to think about, like, what the cause of it is. I guess one way we could break it down is that if there's a Widowmaker, and you're playing, like, you're not playing any dive characters that can deal with the Widow, or, like, no sniper of your own, then think about it, right? Whoops. Who on your team can deal with this Widowmaker? Not Ryan. I mean, Ryan can shield, but, like, that's about it. Mora can't deal with... Sorry. Mora, no. Reinhardt, no. Farrah can't deal with them. Sim can't deal with them. Baptiste can't. You're literally the only person on your team that can deal with Widow. Therefore, because it's, like, your exclusive... Like, you're the only one that can do it. It's you that should be doing it, right? So you need to be careful of the Widowmaker. And you going for this play just immediately shows your lack of awareness of where Widowmaker is.
And I think also it's breaking the rule that you said when you're off angling. So he's at least kind of off angling. He's trying to off angle. Like even if we skip back, let me skip back just a tad. Like just right at this point right here, we're kind of off angling here. Now I don't. Obviously the rock is atrocious, but this is okay. But you said when you're off angling, you have to kind of slow your tempo, so that you kind of bleed the enemy. You get more and more and more value from that position, and eventually you win the fight just because you got so much damage, you drew so much attention, right? So what this player is doing is he's taking an off angle, great, but then he's going in super deep, he has no shield up, and he just like runs on top of the Rhine, right? So he accelerates his play way too much in that off angle. Whereas if he just stayed here, shielded the Widow, shot the Rhine in the back, shot the Zarya, maybe rocked the Rhine, played near the pillar in case his shield got low, we could have eventually gotten way more value at the off angle, but he does it too fast.
That's really true, yeah. Because then the Rhine shield would break eventually, then he has to go back to point, and then they gave up all the space, then he can walk up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that might be a little bit too advanced for like gold players, right? But that's the general idea behind it. Huge. That was a good stun. Still do end up going down. Like that grab right there is really not like your fault in any way. You just kind of got grabbed when they ran into you. But another thing I want to tie back. So this map, it's been so much time. I don't even know how much time this is. Either way, the game's almost done, and you still don't have your Flux. And then if you look at the previous map, you got your Flux at the very end as well. Or you only got one Flux that entire map. So you're averaging one Flux per map, which is really, really bad. And that obviously comes from damage. And the reason you're getting like so little damage is because you aren't taking off angles, right? You're just playing with your team, shooting shields, being a weenie, not really doing anything.
That's the
reason why.
He's barely, so he's coming up basically second Flux here, but it's like 80% here and 80% here. So it's taking him like, what, almost 2 minutes to get a single Flux? And like you said, it's the off angles. So.
Yeah, it's actually way more than 2 minutes, isn't it? I think. I could be wrong.
Well, if like...
Actually, I don't know the numbers.
Yeah, so it's like 1.5 something seconds per tick, so it would be like, yeah, it would be a little...
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Because 150 seconds plus 30 seconds, so 180 seconds of the game.
Yeah.
Well,
this would be his second Flux.
Oh, shit, okay. Wait, did he get another Flux this map?
Well, remember the throw with the Coalescence?
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
But still,
so I think I actually just blocked that out of my mind.
Yeah, but yeah, yeah. I'm a little jealous of that. But no, still very, very slow. Like you're still, even if you're getting a Flux every 75-80%, that's like 3 team fights. That's a little slow.
And a good, like, practical way to see if you're doing enough damage or flanking enough or being aggressive enough is to look at your damage stats. Obviously, stats aren't everything. But as Sigma, like, for example, back when it was 120 damage per volley, a good damage stat to look for is 10k per 10. So 1k damage per minute. That's the thing you want to aim for. And if you got 10k damage per 10, you're doing well.
Right. I read somewhere that stats are irrelevant until you have bad stats, and then there's a problem.
Yeah, pretty much. But then, like, for example, right now when you do 110 damage per volley, right? And especially as a gold player, I'd say maybe aim for like 8k damage for 10 minutes. And I think that's like a pretty decent number to aim for. Okay. But yeah, it's just like stats really don't matter that much, but like they definitely give you big insight into how you're playing.
Like I said,
because
stats don't matter unless you have a really bad stat, and then
Yep.
that's something that you should be taking a look at.
Yep.
This is better positioning wise.
Yeah, I like how you're
Like
doing.
we're drawing
like, going
symmetric
right
turrets. Ryan's scared. Hey. This, oh no. Oh no. Hey, this is. Wait.
Are you trying to pause it?
And there. What do you think?
This is good positioning. I like it.
Yeah.
But let me go back and see though, because I want to see.
Chrono's like, it's good
Wait.
positioning, but no.
Because the thing is, right now I feel like you're playing really passively.
Mhm.
Like you're just like shooting here and then backing up. And I'm trying to see why you don't just like commit to the off
I
angle.
think it was the Ryan.
But yeah, and again, that's the thing though. Ryan doesn't present a threat. So then it's like, it doesn't matter, right? If Ryan pushes you, you back up like this, and then Ryan's in a really scuffed position, which is completely fine for you. Like, you take that trade any day of the week.
Mm.
But yeah, so I think it took you too long to actually get into this position here.
Okay.
You're just kind of like being a weenie, peeking around corners, not really doing too much. And now you commit to the off angle. For example, rock there gets no value, so no reason to rock that.
Yeah.
And you're playing as Widowmaker. A lot of segments have this problem with Flux, where they just constantly hold space so they can fly into the air because it looks cool. And actually, this is something I've noticed from you, is you tend to try to get the ultimate.
Wait, hang on. Me?
No, not for you, but yeah, Abe Lincoln. I want to clarify that. I haven't seen you play Sigma actually, so I can't say. But
really good.
one thing I've noticed is basically your ultimates, you tend to look for a bird's eye view, or like directly down. Which I don't know why you do that actually. That doesn't make any sense to me. You try to fly above them and then not straight down.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like you can actually Flux. Like for example, you can use your shield like this. You could press Q right now and get these guys right here. Without exposing yourself to the Widowmaker that's gonna shit on you if you fly into there into the open. So there's no reason to hold spacebar. Like you just rather just like ult right now off the ground. Cause yeah, look at this. You're in a good spot here. You could play behind your shield. You could play behind this pillar right here. But instead, what you do is you say, "Fuck it, man. I'm going in."
So
you go into Widow's sightlines.
I would agree, but you're clearly forgetting a very important competitive aspect, which is it looks really cool.
Oh yes, 5-ed. It does look cool. But you know what? You know what would be cooler though? Let me show you what would be really cool. If you would ult in the air, and then instead of ulting in the middle like this, like a fucking rocket ship, how about you go up like behind this pillar like a rocket ship? Then you can ult them, and then you say "fuck it" and you go chase the Widowmaker with all your airtime.
Oh, that would be cool.
That'd be even cool. You can still go all the way up without being in line of sight.
That'd be terrifying.
Yeah, I know, dude. A flying Sigma
Why
coming
is
at you.
there an old psychopath coming after me? Oh dear. Okay. So obviously we get domed. Unfortunate. So we've seen 2 rounds of this, right? We've seen 2 rounds, and we've seen a lot of, like, I think we've seen enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, at this point just like repeating the same problems over and over again.
So
which I think is a good thing.
Well, if you had to pick 2 problems, what would they be? Big problems to fix, biggest contributors to his mediocre or atrocious gameplay. What are those going to be?
Damn, what a savage, bro. Chill. All right, but so let's say the first one is going to be off angle. I'm going to write it down because I find it easier to say it that way.
I'm just going to laugh at your penmanship if it's worse than mine.
Yo, it's really bad. Don't worry.
Is it worse than mine? We'll find out.
All right, so off angle. That's the number one. Like your positioning is atrocious because you're staying with your team all the time. You want to take off angles because you actually open up more opportunities for your team when you actually pressure the flanks. So off angle is like by far the number one thing. I was trying to think number 2. I mean, your Flux usage is kind of scuffed, but I mean, I wouldn't say that's like the big fundamental thing, you know? I feel like there's one more. So off angling,
maybe his
I'd
secretion
say,
use.
yeah, I'm feeling it's like the rock. I'm trying to think if there's anything bigger than that. Yeah, I'd say it's rock usage. And we talked already a shitload about the rock usage. And yeah, it's just that you're constantly wasting your rock. I've seen one good rock, if I remember correctly, 2 good rocks on these 2 maps so far. One on Doofus on the first map, and then one more on the last map when they're chasing you. Okay. But yeah, so you had 2 good rocks out of maybe 10 or 15 or 20.
That is,
which is not an acceptable number.
It's not a good percentage.
It's as if you were wasting, like, let's say 80% of your anonades or 80% of your sleeps. Like, it's that big of a deal. But yeah, I think those are 2 big things for sure.
Okay. Chat, do you have any last questions for Chrono? We'll take a couple more questions, Chrono, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, let's do it. Also, real quick.
Yeah.
Am I able to link something in your chat or no?
Yeah, go ahead. You should be able to.
Okay.
If you get banned, no big deal, no big loss.
If you want to see my penmanship, actually take a look at that. That's my real penmanship,
oh,
IRL.
No. Oh,
I'm
no.
not even kidding. That's me trying to have good handwriting.
Oh, dude, that's better than mine. That's actually
Oh
better
yeah,
than
true.
mine.
I forgot.
Okay.
I forgot your handwriting is really bad.
Yeah. Come on, dude. Stop rubbing it in. All right. Like, competition here. I gotta make sure I'm not exposing strats. Okay, yeah, this should... No, that's actually... I can't show that. Can't show that. Okay. Okay, this should be okay. We're gonna crank this face cam size up a little bit. Okay.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Wait. That's what we.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's I'm in the wrong field. I should be a doctor, obviously.
Oh my god.
Okay. Well, you guys,
I feel bad for you now.
Yeah, you guys could actually tag Chrono now because he's going to be actually reading the plat chat. So, I guess it starts with right under your Twitter status.
Yeah, let me scroll up and see.
Sure.
All right. Any advice for charging Sigma Ultimate? Yeah, I mean, for charging Sigma, it's just a matter of damage, right? So it's about off-angling and being more aggressive. And that's just how you farm Ultimate faster.
Mm-hmm.
But when you play aggressive, you don't want to be aggro for no reason, right? You want to be aggressive when you see opportunities to go aggressive, right? So let's say that, the enemy shield breaks, right? Then you could go aggressive. Something like that. You'll look for opportunities to go aggro. You don't want to just, like, blatantly be, like, holding W.
Mm-hmm.
Where do babies come from? You're going to have to ask Spilo. About spamming shields for shield break versus shooting over shields for ult charge. That's a good question, actually, Big Red. So, if you're playing Orisa Sigma versus Orisa Sigma, which is like a whole bunch of shields, then you're usually better off shooting around the shield to get like your ultimate and to get damage. But if you're playing, let's say, Sigma Zarya versus Sigma Zarya, you'd rather shoot shields because the shields aren't infinite, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Shooting shields and double shield doesn't really do that much, but shooting shields when Sigma's their only shield is a bigger deal. So that's the way I'd break it down. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes great sense. There's a good one from Anexian. Is it worth still focusing on off-angling a Sigma without another shield tank? I mean, you kind of answered that similar to where, like, if you kind of have to play closer to your core if you don't have another shield tank. That was one of the kind of the first things that we talked about. I don't know if everybody caught that though.
Yeah, I mean, you could still off-angle if you have like a Sigma Zarya, for example, but the way you play is so different. Basically, so if you play Sigma and you play as a main tank, then it's easy for your team to play around you. But if you play Sigma and you off-angle, you're basically forcing 5 other people to play the game differently than they normally would. It's not necessarily bad to off-angle when you have solo shield, but it's harder for your team, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for example, like if you were to play off-angling, right, as a solo shield tank Sigma, you'd basically have your Zarya play for charge, right? Zarya just gets like 100 energy, goes on off-angles too. Sigma goes on off-angles, and everyone else just like tries not to die. Okay. So yeah, it's possible, but it's pretty hard to execute in ranked, in my opinion. And then question from Stretch. Any tips for practicing long-range rocks, specific custom game settings, etc.? No. The question I'd have for you, Stretch, is why would you go for long-range rocks? Like, what's the idea behind that? Because the whole principle of rock, right, is that use it reactively so you can get additional value. So if you're rocking from across the map, it's probably not going to be worth it.
I mean, I gotta tell you, Stretch, like, I've spent probably 12 hours this week, maybe more, watching Overwatch League Sigmas and their POVs, and I have seen maybe 2 long-range rocks that looked like they were pretty hard to do that like maybe 2. Like 90% of the rocks that were landed at Overwatch League were just close-range rocks that your average diamond player could land. But they were saved, they were aimed well, and like you said, they were high percentage rocks. So,
and like a big thing for people trying to get better is you have to focus on the very core things that affect every aspect of your game, not like the little 1% off chance scenarios, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of learning long range rocks, learn like good positioning, learn shield management, learn when should you save your rock, when should you use your rock, like those basic fundamentals, right? Mm-hmm. Why focus on the 5% of your gameplay when you could focus on the other 95%? Mm-hmm. That's a big thing I have. All right, let's see. Does kinetic grasp extend out significantly, such as Diva Matrix? Is it worth using this across your team to protect them? Actually, Siri, that's a good question. Okay, so about the kinetic grasp. So, kinetic grasp, the way I think about it is I think of it as a defense matrix. But there's some cases where you want to use it for your team, but there's not that many, right? So, for example, in this meta, Reaper. If Reaper is going into your backline or he's going to shift to use his ultimate, you just want to follow Reaper and hold W into him. If you keep holding W into Reaper when he's ulting, you will literally block the whole Death Blossom. The whole thing. and it's actually game winning for your team. So that's a big way to use it. Another one is for shield battle, right? So let's say, it's double shield meta as it usually is. One way you can win shield battle is you drop your shield and you just use your shift and walk in front of everybody and take all the damage and lets your shield recharge. It's super, super important. But yeah, those are the ways I would use Kinetic Grasp. Outside of that, it's like more situational, right? So like if you're playing against a McCree, then save it for Flashbang, for example.
Okay. Let's see if there's one more good one. The Suck has one where I think that's pretty good. Here. Just should you try to always throw out a shield to cover yourself while you're ulting?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's the thing a lot of Sigmas don't do. It's either you should throw a shield or you should like go behind cover, right? Because the thing with Sigma ult is you don't have to constantly be staring at the location you ulted. So let's say you can pop your ultimate behind a corner. You can peek the corner for like half a second, press left click, and then hide back behind the corner. And there's like no way they kill you unless they kill you in like that half second. On top of that, if you don't have any cores to play around, then yeah, you could just throw out your shield. Throw out your shield and then play behind it. That's super important, actually. Like, there's almost no excuse not to do it. It's just laziness, I think.
Guac. Right in the bridge between Diamond Masters, you have the worst tank quality is knowing when to go aggressive and when to absorb pressure. Any tips?
I
think it's really hard. I think tips are less useful the higher in rank you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's fundamentals. But the thing is, I do think knowing the difference between when to be aggro and when to be passive, I think that's like a fundamental thing. And actually for tanks, like main tanks, I think that's probably like the biggest aspect of the play to think about. How can I say this? It's just like you want to look for windows of opportunity, right? So like, let's say, let's just go back to goats for a second here.
Yeah.
If you have Zarya bubble advantage, you want to push forward and capitalize on the advantage. If you have Zarya bubble disadvantage, you want to back up so you don't get punished. You just want to extrapolate that thinking to the rest of main tank play. So if you have an advantage, then you want to try to take that space. But actually, space taking is super important. So if the enemy's like, sorry, let me rephrase this. So the enemy should not be able to push through anything for free. You want to make the enemy work for every bit of space that they try to take. And then like, if you can't fight them there, then you just back up. And if you can fight them there, then you take the fight.
Perfect.
And again, whether or not you can take the fight is dependent on things, right? Or cooldowns, right? So if you have more Zarya bubbles than they do, then you can go aggro with that. If you have more ultimates, you can go in with that. If, let's say, your Orisa has Fortify, the enemy Orisa does not, you can push the enemy Orisa. It is like these small situational windows that pop up that determine whether you go aggro or you back up.
Okay.
It's really situational, though. That's why it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Well, Chrono, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This was super, super generous of you. I'm going to be plugging just your Twitch for right now, but you've got a Twitter, you've got a YouTube. I'll put those later in the Discord so you guys can all check those out.